The Silent Prisoner. The dust on Zarian 7 never settled. It hung in the thin atmosphere like a permanent fog, turning the twin suns into pale yellow smudges against the rust-colored sky. Commander Zara Vex adjusted her breathing apparatus and scanned the abandoned mining complex through her tactical visor. Her 6 arms moved with practiced efficiency, 2 gripping her plasma rifles while the others operated scanning equipment and communication devices. "Another dead end," muttered Lieutenant Corax through the comm channel. His voice carried the familiar tone of disappointment that had plagued their unit for months. "Sector 12 shows no life signs, Commander. Just more empty tunnels and broken machinery." Zara's silver scales rippled with annoyance. 3 months of hunting across the outer rim planets, and still no trace of the reported human survivor. High Command insisted that someone had been sending coded transmissions from this sector, but every lead turned cold. The human resistance had been crushed 5 years ago, their homeworld reduced to radioactive ash. What were the odds that any of them remained? "Continue the sweep," she ordered, her voice echoing through the empty corridors of the mining station. "High Command doesn't send us on holiday trips. If there's a human here, we find them." The mining station stretched deep into Zarian 7's crust, a maze of tunnels and chambers carved by the long-extinct Viridian Corporation. Most of the equipment had been stripped away during the war, leaving behind hollow spaces filled with shadows, and the constant drip of condensation from rusted pipes. Zara had seen dozens of places like this, ghost stations scattered across worlds that no longer mattered to anyone. She descended to sub-level 7, where her scanner detected faint energy. Readings. The readings were so weak they could have been residual power from old batteries, but something about the pattern felt deliberate. Too regular to be random decay, too subtle to be an accident. The corridor ahead curved to the right, following the natural contours of the rock. Emergency lighting flickered sporadically, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Zara moved silently, her specialized boots making no sound on the metal grating. Her secondary arms kept her weapons ready while her primary hands operated a handheld scanner. The energy signature grew stronger as she approached a maintenance chamber. The door stood slightly ajar, and through the gap she could see the soft, blue glow of active electronics. Her pulse quickened. After months of empty searches, finally something worth investigating. She pressed herself against the wall beside the door and listened. No sounds of movement, no breathing, no mechanical hums except for the faint electrical activity. Either the room was automated or whoever was inside had remarkable self-control. With 2 swift movements, Zara kicked the door open and swept into the room, weapons raised. What she found stopped her cold. A human sat cross-legged on the floor. In the center of the chamber, surrounded by a complex array of salvaged electronics, cables snaked across the floor, connecting various devices in patterns that made no obvious sense. The man looked up at her entry with calm brown eyes, showing no fear or surprise at having 6 plasma rifles pointed at his chest. "Hello," he said, simply. His voice was steady, almost conversational. "I wondered when someone would find this place." Zara stared at him through her visor, her mind racing. The human appeared to be in his 30s, with brown hair and skin weathered by years of harsh living. His clothes were a patchwork of salvaged materials, but clean and well-maintained. What shocked her most was his composure. Every human she had encountered during the war had either fought desperately or cowered in terror. This one sat like he was waiting for a friend to arrive. "Identify yourself," she commanded, though her weapons remained trained on him. "Thomas Reed," he replied, making no move to stand or reach for anything that might be a weapon. "Engineer, formerly of the Terran Colonial Corps, currently unemployed, as you might imagine." "Thomas Reed," Zara repeated, accessing her tactical database. The name appeared in her system within seconds. "Wanted for sabotage of Caltharian supply lines during the Procyon campaign. Believed killed in the bombing of Kepler Station. Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated." Thomas said with a slight smile, though I can't say I'm surprised by the confusion. That was a very thorough bombing. Zara circled him slowly, keeping her weapons aimed at his center mass. The electronic equipment around him was clearly functional, but she couldn't identify half the components. Some appeared to be standard human technology, others looked Caltharian, and a few pieces were completely unfamiliar. "What is all this?" she demanded, gesturing with one rifle at the array of devices. "Research," Thomas said simply. "I've had 5 years to study the technology left behind on worlds like this. Fascinating stuff, really. Your people aren't the only ones who've been curious about the precursors." The word hit Zara like a physical blow. The precursors were the ancient race that had left ruins and artifacts scattered across the galaxy millions of years ago. Their technology was far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations could fully understand, though the Caltharian Empire had built much of its power on reverse engineering precursor devices. "You know nothing about precursor technology," Zara snarled. "Your species barely achieved interstellar flight before we crushed you." Thomas tilted his head slightly, considering her words. "That's what everyone assumed," he said. "But assumptions can be dangerous things. May I show you something?" "You may sit there and wait for transport," Zara replied. "High Command will be very interested in questioning you." "I think you'll be more interested in this," Thomas said, reaching slowly toward one of the devices. Zara's weapons tracked his movement, but he made no threatening gestures. He simply touched a control surface on what looked like a precursor interface node. The chamber filled with soft, harmonious tones. The walls began to glow with patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with some cosmic heartbeat. The very air shimmered as if reality itself was resonating with the sounds. Zara's weapons wavered as she stared at the display. She had seen precursor technology activate before, but never like this. The Empire's best scientists required massive power sources and complex authorization codes to achieve even basic functions from precursor artifacts. This human had activated what appeared to be a major system with a single touch. "How?" she whispered. "That's the interesting question, isn't it?" Thomas said, standing slowly with his hands visible. "Your people have been trying to unlock precursor technology for centuries. You've made progress, certainly. Those plasma rifles you're holding incorporate precursor power cells. Your ships use precursor navigation systems, but you've always approached it as conquerors trying to take what you want." The lights in the chamber pulsed brighter, and Zara realized they were coming from within the walls themselves. This entire section of the mining station was built around precursor infrastructure. "Humans took a different approach," Thomas continued. "We listened. We learned. We tried to understand rather than simply exploit. And some of us discovered that the precursors left more than just technology behind. They left knowledge, wisdom, and perhaps most importantly, they left tests." "Tests?" Zara found herself asking, though part of her mind screamed that she should be calling for backup instead of engaging in conversation with a prisoner. "Tests to determine who was ready for their true gifts," Thomas said. "Your empire has been failing those tests for centuries. But some humans have been passing them." The harmonic tones grew more complex, creating melodies that seemed to speak directly to parts of Zara's mind she didn't know existed. Her silver scales tingled with an almost electric sensation, and she found her weapons lowering despite her conscious intention to keep them raised. "This is impossible," she said. "Humans are primitives. You lost the war. Your species is extinct." "Are we?" Thomas asked quietly. "Or did we simply evolve beyond your ability to recognize us?" The chamber around them began to shift. What Zara had taken for walls revealed themselves to be sophisticated holographic projections. The true chamber was vast, filled with precursor technology that hummed with barely contained power. Crystalline structures reached toward the ceiling like frozen lightning, each one pulsing with its own rhythm that contributed to the greater symphony. The mining station was just camouflage, Thomas explained. "This is a precursor archive, one of hundreds hidden throughout the galaxy. Your people walked past it for years without ever realizing what was here." Zara's tactical mind raced through the implications. If humans had access to functional precursor archives, if they truly understood the ancient technology better than the Empire did, then everything the Caltharians believed about their victory was wrong. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. "Why reveal your advantage?" Thomas turned to face her fully, and for the first time she saw something deeper in his brown eyes. Not fear or desperation, but a kind of ancient sadness, mixed with determination. "Because the war was never really between humans and Caltharians," he said. "It was between those who would preserve the precursor legacy and those who would corrupt it. And that war isn't over." The harmonic tones reached a crescendo, and the crystalline structures blazed with brilliant light. In that light, Zara saw visions of the galaxy as the precursors had known it. Worlds of impossible beauty, civilizations that had achieved harmony. Between technology and nature, knowledge that spanned the depths of space and time, and she saw what was coming. Dark shapes moving between the stars, consuming everything in their path. The true enemy that the precursors had spent their final millennia preparing to face. "The Devourers are returning," Thomas said softly. "And when they arrive, the petty conflicts between our species won't matter anymore. Only those who truly understand the precursor legacy will have any hope of stopping them." Zara stared at him, her weapons forgotten. In the space of minutes, her entire understanding of the galaxy had been turned upside down. The human she had captured was not a powerless survivor hiding in ruins. He was a guardian of knowledge that could save or damn every living world. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Thomas smiled, and for the first time, it reached his eyes. "I want you to make a choice, Commander Zara Vex of the Caltharian Empire. Will you be a conqueror, or will you be a protector?" The harmonic tones faded to a whisper, but the light in the crystals continued to pulse like the heartbeat of the galaxy itself. Around them, the precursor archive waited with the patience of eons, holding secrets that could reshape the future of all intelligent life. And in the silence that followed, Zara realized that everything she thought she knew about power, about victory, about the nature of strength itself, was about to change forever. The ancient network. The silence stretched between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Zara's 4 secondary arms had unconsciously lowered her weapons, though her primary hands still gripped them tightly. The precursor archive hummed around them with an energy that felt almost alive, responding to some rhythm she couldn't quite grasp. Thomas watched her internal struggle with patient eyes. He had seen this moment before, though never with a Caltharian commander, the instant when someone's worldview cracked open and let in possibilities they had never imagined. "The choice isn't as simple as you make it sound," Zara said finally. Her voice carried the weight of years spent following orders, of a military structure that had defined her entire existence. "I have duties, loyalties. My people depend on the Empire's strength." "Your people," Thomas repeated, stepping closer to one of the crystalline structures. As he approached, the crystal's light intensified, and complex patterns began flowing through its translucent depths. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about Caltharian history before the Empire?" Zara's scales rippled with confusion. "What does that have to do with anything? The Empire unified our worlds, brought order from chaos. We became strong enough to expand across the galaxy. Because you found precursor technology on your homeworld," Thomas said. It wasn't a question. "A crashed ship, buried for millennia. Your scientists reverse-engineered the power cores, the weapons, the faster-than-light drives. In 3 generations, you went from a planetary civilization to a galactic empire." "Yes," Zara said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. "The great discovery. Every Caltharian child learns about it." Thomas touched the crystal, and suddenly the chamber filled with holographic images. Zara gasped as she recognized the distinctive architecture of her homeworld, but this wasn't the Calthar she knew. The buildings were different, more organic, seeming to grow from the landscape rather than dominate it. The Caltharians in the images moved with a grace her people had lost, their scales shimmering with patterns of light that spoke of harmony with their environment. "This is Calthar before the Empire," Thomas said softly. "Before your people found the crashed ship and mistook destruction for power." "That's impossible," Zara whispered, but she couldn't look away from the images. The Caltharians in the hologram were clearly her people, but they were different. Peaceful. Their cities pulsed with the same harmonic rhythms that filled this chamber. "The precursors didn't just leave technology behind," Thomas continued. "They left guides, teachers, living systems designed to help younger species evolve naturally toward wisdom and balance. Your people were students once, learning to work with precursor knowledge instead of stealing it." The holographic images shifted, showing the moment everything changed. A group of Caltharian scientists discovering the wreckage of what appeared to be a precursor vessel. But as Thomas manipulated the archive's controls with an ease that made Zara's tactical training scream warnings, the truth became clear. "It wasn't a precursor ship," she breathed. "No," Thomas confirmed. "It was a devourer vessel, damaged in some ancient battle, its crew long dead. But the technology was similar enough that your scientists thought they had found treasure. They reverse-engineered weapons of destruction and called it progress." The holographic Calthar transformed before her eyes. The organic cities gave way to metallic fortresses. The graceful, light-touched Caltharians became the militant species she knew. Within a few generations, they had conquered their star system. Within a century, they ruled dozens of worlds. "The Empire isn't built on precursor wisdom," Thomas said. "It's built on devourer technology, and every conquest, every expansion, every act of domination has been preparing the galaxy for their return." Zara felt something fundamental shifting inside her mind. The crystalline structures around them pulsed brighter, as if responding to her emotional turmoil. "You're saying my entire civilization is a lie." "Not a lie," Thomas said gently. "A mistake. A wrong turn taken so long ago that your people forgot there was ever another path. And humans somehow knew better?" The bitterness in her voice surprised her. Thomas laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Humans made plenty of mistakes. We nearly destroyed ourselves with wars and pollution before we ever left our homeworld. But when we found precursor sites, we approached them differently. Maybe because we were already broken, we recognized the difference between technology that heals and technology that destroys." He moved to another control interface, and the chamber began to shift around them. The floor beneath their feet became transparent, revealing vast networks of crystalline conduits stretching deep into the planet's core. Streams of energy flowed through them like luminous rivers, connecting this archive to others scattered across the galaxy. "This is the real precursor legacy," Thomas said. "Not weapons or ships or tools of conquest. A living network that spans the galaxy designed to nurture and guide developing civilizations. The Caltharian Empire has been systematically destroying it for centuries without even realizing what they were killing." Zara stared into the flowing patterns below her feet. Each stream of light represented connections she was only beginning to understand. Communication networks that operated faster than light. Teaching systems that could adapt to any species' learning patterns. Defensive measures that could protect entire star systems from cosmic threats. "The devourers you mentioned," she said. "They're coming back?" "They never left," Thomas replied grimly. "They've been dormant in the void between galaxies, waiting for the precursor network to weaken enough for them to return. Every world the Empire conquers, every archive they destroy or corrupt, brings that moment closer." The chamber around them suddenly brightened. and Zara realized that other presences had joined them. Not physical beings, but patterns of consciousness that moved through the crystal network like thoughts through a vast mind. She felt their attention focus on her, evaluating, measuring, deciding. "They're scanning me," she said, not sure how she knew. "The archive is trying to determine if you're ready," Thomas explained. "Ready to see the truth, to accept responsibility, to make the choice that will define not just your future, but the future of your entire species." One of the consciousness patterns approached closer, and suddenly Zara's mind was flooded with images. She saw the galaxy as the precursors had known it, teeming with life and potential. She witnessed the first devourer incursion, the desperate battle to contain entities that consumed not just matter and energy, but meaning itself. She felt the precursors' final decision to sacrifice themselves, encoding their knowledge and consciousness into the network to guide future generations. And she saw what was coming. Dark shapes at the galaxy's edge, stirring from their long sleep. The devourers were returning, drawn by the chaos and destruction that the Empire's expansion had created. They fed on discord, on broken connections, on civilizations that had lost their way. "How long?" she whispered. "The network's calculations suggest 50 years, Thomas said. "Maybe less if the Empire continues its current expansion rate. Every world they conquer weakens the defensive grid. Every species they subjugate is one less ally in the coming war. And humans think they can stop this?" Zara's military mind was already analyzing the tactical situation. "How many of you are there? How many archives do you control?" "Enough," Thomas said simply. "We've been preparing for centuries, ever since our first contact with the network. But we can't do it alone. The precursors designed their defenses to require cooperation between species, different perspectives and abilities working in harmony, the consciousness patterns around them pulsed with what felt like approval. Zara realized that this entire encounter had been orchestrated, not by Thomas alone, but by the network itself. They had been waiting for a Caltharian commander to find this place, to be forced to confront the truth about her people's path. "What would you have me do?" she asked. "Even if I believe everything you've shown me, I'm one officer in a vast military hierarchy. I can't change the course of an empire." "You can't change it from the outside," Thomas agreed. "But from the inside, with the right knowledge and allies, you might be able to redirect it. Help your people remember what they were before they became conquerors." He gestured to the flowing networks below them. "The archive contains the complete history of your species, including the genetic and cultural patterns that existed before. The corruption. It's possible to reverse the changes, to help Caltharians reconnect with their original nature. And if my superiors discover what I'm doing, if the Empire considers me a traitor, then you'll face the same choice every human who joined the network has faced," Thomas said. "Whether survival is worth sacrificing everything that makes life meaningful." Zara looked around the chamber one final time, at the crystalline structures that hummed with ancient wisdom, at the flowing patterns of light that connected this world to countless others. She thought of her crew above, loyal soldiers following orders they didn't question. She thought of her homeworld, its metallic cities and military installations built on foundations of forgotten harmony. "If I agree to this," she said slowly, "what happens next?" Thomas smiled, and this time it carried genuine warmth. "Next, you learn. The network will teach you to see the galaxy as the precursors did, to understand the connections between all living things. You'll discover abilities your species possessed before they were suppressed by devourer technology. And when you're ready, you'll return to your people and begin the work of awakening them. And if I refuse, then you return to your ship and report that you found an empty mining station. The network will relocate this archive and will continue preparing for the war that's coming. But your people will face the devourers as they are now, corrupted and divided. And they'll fall." The choice hung in the air between them like a suspended breath. Zara felt the weight of her entire civilization's future pressing down on her shoulders. Everything she had been trained to value, loyalty, duty, military strength, seemed hollow compared to the vast scope of what Thomas was offering. But beneath those trained responses, something deeper stirred. A memory of dreams she'd had as a child, visions of Calthar wreathed in gentle light. A longing for something her people had lost so long ago they no longer remembered its absence. "Teach me," she said finally. The crystalline structures blazed. With triumphant light and the consciousness patterns around them pulsed with what felt unmistakably like joy, Thomas stepped forward and placed his hand on her scaled forearm, a gesture of connection that transcended species barriers. "Welcome to the real war," he said. "The war for the soul of the galaxy." Around them, the precursor archive began its ancient work of transformation, preparing to awaken abilities that had slept in Caltharian genetics for millennia. And in the depths of space, other nodes in the network registered the change, adding one more light to the growing constellation of hope that might yet stand against the returning darkness.